We're on page 222. On the sixth line, towards the end, the last four words, it says, V'yoser muvan zeh. You have it? Count from the top six lines.
On the top 6 lines or the bottom?
On the top.
Oh, yeah.
On the top. Okay, just to recap briefly, we had both of you weren't here yesterday, but we had a very open dialogue between all of us yesterday on what we learned. And I urge you to look at that YouTube. It's recorded for your own knowledge. And the discussion was about global warming. Is global warming al pi Torah or is it not al pi Torah? I mean, I'm just modernizing, using a contemporary buzzwords. But if one learns yesterday's section, it brought to mind the whole idea: is there such a thing as cessation of creations of Hashem? In particular, we spoke about the moon, the sun, the constellations, the stars, and it's a Rambam. It's a Rambam, Hilchas Yisoidei HaTorah. And the Frierdiker Rebbe cites him in the Maamar. And it's based on a posuk. It says, Ish loy nedar. The Rebbe cites that as well. And this means, according to Pashtus Haksuvim, according to the simple text, lo ish lo nedar. There's no such a thing that there will be heder, lacking and missing it, and the extinctness of species. What there is the extinction of the brand. So I cited yesterday as an example, the chilozain. The chilozain has been an age-old debate whether the fish still exists or not. And if it does exist, do we really know which fish it is? Is it possible? Is it possible that the chilozain fish is out of commission? I believe. I'm not a bucky. I'm not an expert in this field, so please understand. But from the little I know is that it's possible. And this is part of the argument between those that are pro-tchelis backers, some of which we see in Eish Kodesh and Karl Bach Shul, with their tchelis. In Chabad, usually you won't find many people wearing tchelis because the Lubavitcher Rabbeim did not speak about it and surely not wear tchelis. So in Chabad, in Lubavitch, it's not something that we do. However, there are those like Rabbi Twersky, Olav Hasholem, Avram Twersky, who just passed on. If you noticed his talis, he did wear tchelis, which was fascinating and revolutionary to his Hasidic world of Chernobyl. Because the Chernobyler, the Skverer, and the Rachbestrifke, and the Tolna, at least out here in Brooklyn, don't wear tchelis. Rabbi Twersky's probably kids and brothers don't wear tchelis. But he wore tchelis, and I highly compliment him. Hillel, do you know if his brother Reb Michal wears tchelis?
I don't think so. Yeah,
right.
No.
Reb
Michal.
Reb Michal. Yeah. Reb Michal, I'm sorry. Yeah. So
he doesn't.
He doesn't. So he doesn't. I'm right. I'm right in my assumption that this was
Rabbi.
What?
Reb Michel's son does. Reb Zion does.
Okay, so what you see is obviously, free will, and people are, if this is what they come to and understand and determine, kol hakavod. But what I'm saying,
the way I heard Rabbi Twersky say it, Rabbi Shia Twersky say it, El B'Shalom is basically like no harm done, no harm, no foul in that, if it's not the right Techela, so what? It doesn't hurt anything, and if it is so, you get the whatever schar.
Okay.
That's what I heard him sort of say.
Okay, fine, but you need to know that was not the Masorah. I'm just saying.
Right, for sure, yeah.
Everything. As long as we know the larger picture, no problem. But you got to know the larger picture.
Does anybody know? I know that there was a famous Red Ziner Rebbe,
right,
about the Chelis,
right,
and who defined it is the Chelis that the breast lovers wear? Is that his, or?
I don't know, but what do you mean? Is that his? Is it the exact? Is it coming from that exact fish?
Did they wear the techelas based upon his fur? His fur is that they?
It's a good question. I don't know. Does anyone know? I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway. What'd you say?
There's two different types.
Go ahead. What do you mean? There's two different types?
Meaning that one comes from the Chilazon and the other is Murex. There's a lot of discussion between what the derivation is, where it's coming from.
Okay, but it's not a shir and tchelis. I want to get back to the nekuda. The nekuda is that it is possible that fish, the Chilazon, is gone. Are you going to say that the species is gone? Species means the group it comes from. No, the group is still there. The particular fish is not. So when we say when it says Ish lo nedar Moshe, and the Rebbe brings it here and the Rambam cites it, it means that there's no such a thing that the fireball, the sun, will cease to be. Now maybe a particular aspect, Yonason had mentioned something yesterday, a particular aspect of the sun which allows itself to be guided by what we call the koyach hagvul, the power of finite within God. That maybe you could say will end at a certain time, if you could prove that. But the overall etzem hasun, the sun ball as created in the Sheishes Yemei HaBreishis, will not cease to be. A proof to this, I think, is in Yehoshua, on Gibel Tammuz. The Lubavitchers love to quote this, Shemesh begivoin doim. The sun stopped in Givoin. Avi, I'm sure, knows. Where's Givoin, Avi? Give us a quick geographical location.
Yeah, Givon is north of Yerushalayim, not far from where Atara is. And on the way, if you continue on the road from Shmuel Hanavi, you get to Givon.
Thank you. So it says Shemesh begivoin doim. Does it say over there, Yoni, does it say there the Shemesh was eliminated? No. It says that it became silent. It became covered. It didn't come out. Hashem made a miracle. But not that there was an elimination of the Shemesh. No, why not? Why not? L'cha'ira, if Hashem wanted to show a real miracle, he should have, at least for that day, eliminated the Shemesh. It doesn't say that. And I'm just thinking about it. Possibly the reason is because it's an oxymoron to say that he would eliminate the Shemesh. Because he himself created the species of Shemesh. That means the Shemesh is Chai v'Kayim. And this is a Yesoid, this is a foundational thought in the Yud Gimel Ikrim of the Rambam, which we sing and recite and think about and talk about. One Yesoid that you must know when you talk about the Yud Gimel Ikrim is that it's Nitzchias. It's eternal. It's everlasting. So if the Eibishter in his Torah Kedosha said that on the B'yom Revi Nitlu HaMa'oros, he hung Ma'oros luminaries, that's a reality that God is real, his creation is real. And as Hashem exists, there's no such a thing as non-existence, God forbid, of God. It's an oxymoron because he exists. Therefore, his creation exists. And this also, by the way, would explain another controversial discussion of the Tferes Yisrael. You all know that some people would not learn Tferes Yisrael on Mishnayos. Why? Because regarding the verse, Boina Oilamos Umachrivon, Hashem creates worlds and he destroys them. So the Tferes Yisrael interprets that to mean actual destruction of worlds, and that there were worlds here before that we don't have today. And when people heard that, they got very upset and they said, wow. And to the point where some would not learn Tferes Yisrael. Today, everyone, I would say, does learn it, but there was a period in Jewish history after he came up with this bombshell interpretation that rocked the boat in a way that people didn't want to learn his commentary. And why is that? Because, again, thinking out loud, at least the one explanation of his words are that God eradicated something that he himself created. And if it was a creation of God, it's eternal and it's emes. Emes is Aleph Mem Tov. If it doesn't go from the beginning through the middle to the end, meaning it's always there, it's not emes. It's Svas Emes, a little truth, etc., etc. But it's not emes, or as in the Lashon of the Alter Rebbe in Tanya, emes la'amitoi, truth within truth. All of this I'm saying in conjunction to what we learned yesterday. The Rebbe said that how is it and why is it that the species remains? It's because the koyach, the energy, the force that sustains the world, it itself is infinite. If it were to be finite only, there could be an end to that koyach. Take, for example, when you throw a rock upward, how far does that rock fly? And when does the rock fall back to earth, to the ground? When the koyach of your hand that goes along with the rock ends. So then the rules and laws of gravity make it go back to the floor, to the earth. Why? Because lechatchila, to begin with, the koyach ha'adam is limited. And since the koyach ha'adam, the power of man vis-a-vis the throwing, is limited, the result is a limited one. It goes back to its gravitational position. By HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who's infinite, the koyach is infinite. That's the chiddush of the Rebbe here in the Maamar. The Rebbe is adding to what the Rambam says. You understand? Because we have the Rambam. We have the Pesach in Tanakh. Then we have the Rambam. So what's the Rebbe being machadish? What's his nuance? What's his chiddush? His chiddush is that not only is the result eternal, but the reason why the result is eternal is because the force is eternal. Okay? You think about it. It's important. It's understandable. It's workable. It's not beyond your minds. Please, just take some time later. Think about it. Shabbos. Learn some of the little Rambam. And you'll understand it. Take out an English book from a scientist, a frum scientist, and I'm sure they talk about this. Let's continue back. Yes, yes.
Two things. First of all, you mentioned the Tferes Yisrael.
So you mentioned that there were segments of Klal Yisrael that rejected that or did not feel comfortable to learn that. What about the Rambam, right? We know when the Rambam first brought out things, there was also.
Right? Okay. So, strike two.
Okay. Question though, going back to the species though. So again, we know at least scientifically that there are certain species that are no longer, according to science, that are no longer physically in this world, right? Bird, the dodo bird. I mean, I'm just, you're bringing out one.
But so, wait. Is it the type of bird? I use the word the brand. That's no longer, or is it? It's not that the overall bird species doesn't exist. I'm making a distinction between species and kind and brand.
Okay, all right. So then if we're talking about the brand, could be extinct.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's what I was saying. And that's what the Rebbe is saying, and that's the way to understand the Rambam. That's what the Rambam's saying. Okay, let's go now. 222, 6 lines for the top. The last 4 words. This concept will be more understood if we learn about the heavens and the hosts, the heavenly hosts. The heavens and all of the constellations and all the heavenly hosts. They are as powerful today as the day of creation during the 6 days of creation. He quotes a Yerushalmi on the verse. The verse says, these are the offsprings of the heavens and the earth, the day of creation. Comes along the Yerushalmi and says, Shehem Chazokim. They are as mighty, as strong today. Kiyoim Hiboram Yoni. 6,000 years and they haven't withered an inch. They haven't lost any potency. They got still that 1-2 punch. They're strong. And yet, they are limited creatures. Umurukovim. And they're comprised of a guf and a nefesh. There is the spirit and the driving force of the sun, and then there's the sun ball. Mugbul vevshori ahefsit, meaning that when you talk about this situation, there's a possibility for some amount of hefsed, of loss. Nevertheless, ish mehem lo nedar. This is what we were just saying, Moshe. The species doesn't cease to be. Beli shum hefsed klal. The species is eternal. Famous question. The Chazal have a saying. 6,000 years will be Have Alma, will be the world will exist. V'chad Charuf. And 1, meaning the 7th millennium, Chad Charuf, will be destruction. Shomayim k'oshen nimlachu. A verse in Yeshaya. The heavens, like smoke, nimlachu. I'm not sure if they mean here salted or destroyed. We have to look up the verse. Maybe Avi, you know, or you. V'ha'oretz kabeged. Go ahead. Someone knows the interpretation of nimlachu here in this verse. Stop. Anyway, v'ha'oretz kabeged tivle, and the earth like a garment that gets ruined. Okay. So what's the question? This Chazal and this using this verse implies that there'll be a time, Chad Charuv, when there will be total destruction. Just like the Tiferes Yisrael said about that there once were worlds that were destroyed. Right? So the Rebbe, that's his rhetorical question. So the Rebbe's retort is, Harei shesof kol sof yufsudu. Oh, one second, this is still part of the question. Harei shesof sof yufsudu. The end will be, there'll be hefsed, loss. So here he retorts and he says, that's only because Hashem at that moment wants there to be Chad Charuf. By the way, what Chad Charuf exactly means is also not controversial, a big discussion. Yes, Hillel?
Why did you just say, in translating that line, at that moment? Because it could also be, in the original design of something. That our bodies age, and there's many factors in nature that seems like by design originally that they were set up that way. Good
point. What I meant is it is originally by design, but it will express itself in that moment. Chad Charuf.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
I resemble that remark.
Okay. By the way, there's a commentator. I think he's a Rishon. The Ralbag. It's called the Ralbag. And the Ralbag, I don't recall his acronym now, but the Ralbag says, Tinuk, Tinoik, an infant, Mishenoilat, from when he's born, Matchil lihityabesh, begins to dry out, which means death begins at birth.
Yeah.
Not, you understand, the concept of lihityabesh, to dry out, to basically die, to wither.
Yeah, like a lulav.
Like a lulav. It doesn't begin when you're 85 and 90, etc. Tinuk mishenoilad matchil lihityabesh. Why?
I view all these processes as kind of occurring simultaneously. I mean, at the cellular level, cells are being born and dying.
Okay.
Simultaneously.
Okay, fine. Good.
The ratio tends to change over time.
Right. No, but Hillel, it's a very important perspective. It's one we don't like to think about, but the perspective is like, hey, every day. Get moving. Every day, get moving.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's to me, it's an upbeat, and it gets you to go, to move. Anyway, let's go back to the text.
I agree. I agree with that.
Okay. Ki ein ze ki inyin ha'efseidoi shemerishisoi havayosei maschel liposed. It is not similar to the losses that from its very creation it begins to deteriorate. So Hillel?
So he seems to be making a distinction between my point.
Yes. Well, I don't know how to say it. He's saying that the Ratzon Hashem is that at this moment, that's why I said this moment, the Hefseidut should begin at this moment, which is the Elef Hashvi, the seventh, the millennium, the Chad Charuf. Right? Look at his words. It's not like other deterioration. That from the very beginning of its creation, from the moment it was created, it begins to deteriorate. It's not this way with these creatures. Look at this. He quotes the Bechayai. I thought it was a Ralbag. Sorry. That's what happens. I only learned it 45 years ago, 47 years ago. So I guess I forgot the citation.
Rabbeinu Bachai, I thought, was a Talmud of the Ramban.
So a Talmud of who? The Ramban or the Ralbag?
Ramban.
Yeah, okay, fine. But I had quoted before the Ralbag. Anyway, it's Rabbeinu Bachai.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because of Abachai, Shahatinuk Miyoimi. Right? Look at the words, Chavra. Beautiful words. Shahatinuk Miyoimi Voldoi. An infant from the day he's born, Matchilis Yabish. This is what you get, guys, when you go to yeshiva and you learn as a young boy. You remember certain things, not exactly, but it's engraved in your head. And it stays with you. It's like 47 years later. Anyway. V'hainu sha'if seidut hi tomid boy. Look at the words now. Deterioration, have said Moshe, hi tomid boy. It's always there. It's always there. Conversely, Hillel, he is making a distinction. Conversely, Avol Shemayim V'Oretz Sheheim Chazokim Kiyemi Boram. What does the Chazal say? They're as strong as the day they were created. Ve'ein behem shum hefseidut klal. They have no deterioration at all. Kiyem. Rather, Yosid. When Mashiach will come in the future, L'Asid Lavi in the future, Yufsedu b'meheire b'yameinu amen. They will deteriorate very speedily. Amen. Says the Rebbe, Ein ze ki inyan seidut. The deterioration of the Shemayim v'Oretz when Mashiach will come is not this idea of deterioration as we conventionally know it to be to any creature that we know, the human species. Ki im mitzad rotzon haboyre shemekaimam. What is its deterioration? It's hefseidut, that the will of God sustains it. And when God decides, I want it to deteriorate at that moment, it will happen automatically. So what's the difference? The difference he's saying, I guess, that by nature, creation of man lends itself to hefseidut, to deterioration, and creation of the heavenly hosts does not. And the fact that it says that there'll be a time when Mashiach comes when there'll be chad charuv, destruction of those as well, that's because God decided. So you could say he decided at the time of creation that it'll be later. That's why I pointed out to you. You emphasize that it's by design. I'm saying it is by design, but the design is not back when he created. The design is I'm going to be pushing the button of deterioration of Seidut in the 7th millennium. Yes, Jonas.
Understood. Yeah. Understood. Like, and that certainly makes sense when you think of human affairs. Like the judgment of the goyim, the fall of the house of Esav, etc.
Exactly. Yonason? Yonason, unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Chaimer is the physical part, and Surah is the spiritual part. So we say that at this particular time, the Chaimer is Midgaver over the Surah. So the physical, we don't see how the spiritual enlivens the physical. So it could be that at the time that Mashiach comes, the Surah will Midgaver as the Chaimer.
Not could be. It is that way. Yonason is introducing the concept that's brought in Chassidus that there's Chaimer and Tzura. Chaimer is the material. Tzura is the formation of the material. The spirit and the material. And what he's saying that maybe what's being addressed is that the Chaimer will be destroyed. The material will be destroyed, and the tzura, the spirit, will continue and will overpower and overshadow the chaymer. It's true. It's true what you just said. Let's continue. The existence of the heavenly hosts now, Hukiyem bilti mishuna, ubilti nifsak. It's an unchangeable and uninterruptible existence. Therefore we see very well, we must say that this comes from the force that's infinite, that sustains and enlivens, keeps it going constantly. Because it doesn't change. Right? So again, if the global warming advocates believe there's an actual change in the sun ball and all that, it wouldn't be matim. It doesn't correspond to what he says here in the name of Torah, etc.
Oh, but that's not. Yeah, but Rabbi Dolphin, that's not what they're saying about global warming. They're not saying the sun's changing. They're saying that because of our actions, that there's been damage that's been caused to the elements of the atmosphere.
Okay.
So in other words, it's not that the Kodesh Baruch Hu's creation, so to speak, has been changed. Meaning it's been altered, but it's been altered, let's say, by our activities here by our activities.
Well, okay, thank you for that. I mean, does that make sense to say that the sun can change because of what we do?
Well, again, the sun's not changing.
So we're changing. We have styrofoam, so that's using styrofoam. We're changing.
Our styrofoam is causing damage to...
Okay, that could be. That could be. That could be.
It's not, but I know. I'm just saying, making the distinction. They're not saying that the sun is changing.
Okay, thank you. I thought that they were arguing that as well. Thank you. Okay.
They are saying that the temperature on the planet is measurably getting hotter, and that has effects on the ice and water flow and weather patterns.
No, so that's what I thought. But Moshe says, so I guess we have a machlekes between Hillel and Moshe.
They're not saying the temperatures. They're claiming the temperatures are changing. It's not because of the sun. It's because of certain
I agree with that.
Creation in the atmosphere. That's the issue. In other words, if there are things in the atmosphere that are deteriorating, so it's allowing more of the sun to get in. The sun itself is not changing.
Or to raise the surface temperature because it's being trapped by more carbon in the atmosphere.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Like a greenhouse.
A greenhouse.
Correct.
Okay. Very good. Let's continue. The Rebbe goes further now. This is more philosophical. The footnote 47 says that this is brought in a sefer. You only wanted to know more about the Svarim. Moshe wanted to know too. There's a sefer called Sefer HaChakira. Look at note 47. Re'ei ba'arichus, see at length, Sefer HaChakira, the book of philosophy, Chakira Latzemach Tzedek. The history, briefly, in 1843, the Tzemach Tzedek led a group of Rabbonim and Rebbes, whoever, to Petersburg to not allow them to change various issues in the Frum community. And before that, he felt that they're going to ask him basic questions on faith and God. So he studied and he wrote a Sefer HaHakira, a book of philosophy. And it was meant to be private. It was for himself as preparing for a meeting. Okay? In 1911 or 12, I believe, someone publicized this Sefer, a Jew by the name of Rabbi Hellman. Rabbi Hellman was a Lubavitcher Chassid of one of the other sons of the Tzemach Tzedek, not the Rebbe Marash. And he received the document. I think Moshe, I wrote a little bit about this in Chabad Portraits, Volume 2. And he received the documents, the Sefer, from one of the other sons or grandsons of the Tzemach Tzedek. And he claimed, and it's probably so, that he had permission to print it. When it was printed, the Rebbe Rashab, the cousin and son of the Rebbe Marash, was very upset. Very upset. Because he said, my grandfather wanted it to remain private. Why? Because since it's philosophical issues, if you're not in tune with Jewish philosophy, you can easily become an apikoides. You have to really have a strong background of Torah. Just as the tradition in the community is, one should avoid learning Meire HaNevuchim, Guide for the Perplexed of the Rambam, until you're strong in your emunah, because the Rambam deals with philosophical questions, and if you don't have a perspective, you can make a U-turn very easily, a left turn. So too with the Sefer HaHakira. This is the book and a little of the history that we're talking about here. And it's I have not learned it, it's very deep, and with Hashem's help, one day, to learn it. Yes, Hillel.
The Ramchal has a Sefer Choker Makubal.
Okay, that's a different Sefer. It's a different Sefer. I frankly I haven't seen it, but every one of these Svarim that deals with Chakira, philosophy, you need to be, knowledgeable, because it's not just words. It's refined material, right? So now the previous Rebbe is sharing in his own words some thoughts from Sefer HaChakira. But since it's 8 almost time, we'll stop here, and tomorrow we'll continue from here in Yirtzeh Hashem. Everyone have a great day. Seid gesund.
Thank you, Rebbe.
Everyone should have good health. Yes.
Rebbe, I won't be here tomorrow. My father has a doctor's appointment. I have to go to Yerushalayim.
Okay, he should have a refuah shalema. The most important thing is kibud aveim. Do whatever it is to keep your father healthy and better, and Hashem will help. Amen. That we'll all see Mashiach, and the health will be great. Sei gesund.
Amen.
Bye. Take care. Good day. It's the Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka Schneersen's Yom Haledes today. Her birthday is Chof Hei Adar. Okay, sei gesund. Bye.